All right, everybody. This week's episode of Mish, Men, we're going to talk about some very interesting things. Adam, what are we going to talk about?
We are going to talk about what's going on in Israel, the fight, and how some of the factors that feed into it.
Yep. We're also going to talk about some interesting things that we've talked about in the past in terms of government, Federal Reserve, and some other things like that. Hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mish, Men. We're excited to talk to you again this week. Hope you enjoyed last week's episode. I know I did. It was a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to that Francis Ngannou and Tyson Fury match. It should be awesome.
Me too. I'm very excited.
Yeah. My partner in crime is with me, Dusty Labar.
Hello, everybody.
And I am Adam Mauser. And welcome to this week's episode. And it is what is going on in Israel.
It's a lot of stuff right now.
Yeah.
So I guess, well, you don't have to say a date, but it's, what was it, about a week? 2 weeks? Is it a week or 2 weeks?
I think it's right at 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah,
since,
2 weeks.
Since Hamas bombed Israel.
Well, it was a coordinated attack. It was a not unsophisticated attack.
Okay.
Because they had paragliders. Mm-hmm. They launched paragliders into from Gaza.
Yep.
Say if you're not familiar with Israel, there are portions. It's a brokered deal, a two-state solution where you have a strip. It's called Gaza.
Yep.
And it borders the Mediterranean and the southern borders with Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
That is quote unquote Palestinian area.
Yep.
And then you have the rest of Israel, and then you have the West Bank, which borders the West Bank of the Jordan River.
Okay.
With on the other side, that's Jordan. And so anyway, from Gaza and Hamas, that's a political movement / they've been characterized and called out as being a terrorist organization.
Yeah, they started in the 80s, or they signed some kind of doctrine in the 80s or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And most folks think that Iran funds Hamas. Yeah, they're the supporters of Hamas. So everyone's kind of watching Iran.
So you said most folks believe that, as though some people believe that that's not true, or is that pretty well known?
Well, it's hard to get like what are the facts of the matter.
Yep. I heard an interesting thought on this, and that thought was, so obviously like people will immediately say like it was an inside job. Like when things happen, like you have people that'll say that like
a false flag.
Yeah, exactly. So people will say it's a false flag, and nobody knows. It's one of the theories that it could be what exactly happened.
Yeah.
Because Israel has a pretty good intelligence community.
They're like world renowned.
One of the best. Yeah.
And arguably the best.
So one of the theories, or somebody that I was listening to recently said, here's why I think, he said the false flag's not out of the question. But here's why I think it's not that. He said, basically Hamas, he said, they said this, that we basically lulled Israel into a false sense of security. We were like, nah, we're not really worried about fighting. And then I think Israel let some people into Israel or into the Gaza Strip. I'm probably butchering the story. And then they basically waited for 2 years. And then basically surprise attack. So they're saying that like Hamas did this intentionally, like kind of lulled them in, like, hey, we're not gonna fight, got everybody kind of comfortable, and then unleash the attack. But the opposite of that is Israel has like the best intelligence agency.
Yeah.
And it's hard to believe that they didn't know something like that was going to happen.
Yeah, the whole thing. There's a lot of fishiness surrounding the whole episode, and I have no inside information. Here's my complete stance on the whole mess over there.
Okay.
It is difficult to discern what is truth and what is fact. I don't trust corporate media.
Sure.
That's not the first time that any of you on here have heard this.
Right.
This is the same media that are telling us, you need to be excited about this. We need to get behind Israel, or we need to get behind Palestine, whatever.
Yeah.
Whichever side that they're on, I'm not on either of their sides.
Okay.
That's the same media that told me that I'm going to die if I don't get a shot.
Right.
A shot that's actually more harmful than taking my chances with a disease that has a 99.7% survival rate. So automatically don't trust the media.
Right.
I don't trust central banks.
Mm-hmm.
And central banks fund a lot of this excitement. So I'm very skeptical by nature and very suspicious of any kind of motives and any kind of large groupthink.
Mm-hmm.
If people are running to support this group, I'll just wait and see. So
yeah.
no inside information. So anyway, there was a that I was getting ready to talk about, like the big attack. So there was like this outdoor concert and a series of outdoor concerts.
Yeah, I heard about that.
And then you could see like these guys paragliding in. They had these giant fans, like a paraglider.
Oh yeah,
with like a pseudo parachute, one of those paragliding parachutes.
Yeah.
That come in and just these Hamas troops.
Yeah.
Like going in and shooting things up and running around through neighborhoods. And this is one of those fishy parts. It took 6 hours for the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, to respond with any substance. And we're talking about, that whole area is about the size of New Jersey.
Okay.
So 6 hours, that's a long time.
So there was some response, a small response, but it took them 6 hours to get a full on.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And over there, that's one thing to note. The Israeli government, they're a very liberal government. They're like a lot of other governments when it comes to, especially with guns.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of restrictions on gun ownership. And I can't remember what the exact rule is, but there are severe limits on gun ownership.
Uh-huh.
Whereas like if an armed society gets attacked, you don't need the army or the police or whatever to come in and save the day.
Right. Because people have weapons.
Yeah, everyone's got guns, and you train with them regularly, and you know how to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what the founders were pushing big time, because they had the British government was coming in to take their guns. That's why Paul Revere was running around. Hey, they're coming. Right. The British are coming. They're going to take our guns because they told us they're going to take our guns.
Right.
And he was alerting the militia, which wasn't the National Guard. It was the people that were trained to use their muskets because they were self-sufficient folks. Mm-hmm. So anyway, took 6 hours for a response. And remember, there's a border around Gaza. So it's not just easy passage, and it's a highly technologically advanced border.
Okay.
So if things are going to cross that, then cameras are trained, and sensors pick this kind of movement, and these guys were able to fly in. It's just peculiar. I'm not saying that there was a false flag, but that's something that just kind of it piques my curiosity.
They said that there's a lot of political unrest in Israel right now, which is why they chose that time to also do it, because I guess their government's like quite a bit different than ours. Yeah. So they have like a parliament and then not a president, but like a prime minister or something.
They have a prime minister, and I think they also have a president.
They do.
Yeah, but it's a parliamentary government that they.
So the people there is some kind of political unrest where they were having my gosh, the word is escaping me. Rallies.
Mm-hmm. Rallies and protests.
Protests. That's what I was thinking.
Those were before the event too.
Like, they've been going on.
Yeah.
Against
Netanyahu, the current prime minister.
Right. Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah.
So they thought that may be an additional reason why they thought it was a good time to like do something, because things were going crazy. I don't know. I'm just spitting out what I've heard. So it's pretty wild.
That's all I'm doing.
Yeah. It's pretty, I guess what I mean is like, I didn't like research it, and I don't have 100% facts on anything. It's just, this is what people are saying. So, well,
it's an area that I wouldn't say research, but I have read about this whole area for years and years and years. And it's difficult to get, again, to the bottom of, what is true? What are the true facts of the matter? Because there's a lot of disinformation.
Hamas is, I'm sorry if I sound stupid, Hamas is a group that believes there should be no Jews in that area, correct? Is that their basic dumbed down belief? I
think so. I think that's not a minority position over there with the Arabs.
Yeah.
I think everybody looks, all the Arabs in that area do not like a Jewish state there. And a lot of them, like the PLO, That's the government of Palestine.
Right.
They don't they don't even recognize that there is a state of Israel.
Okay.
And they just want to wipe them off the face of the
They're
earth.
just like, they don't exist.
Right.
I gotcha.
From what I understand.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but like I've seen maps that they have produced, the PLO, and there is no Israel there. It just says Palestine, and there's these occupied areas. And it's like when you look at the history of it. So when you look at the history of it, the modern state of Israel, and again, when I say Israel, I mean the state of Israel today, not the Jewish people that make up Israel, which are true descendants of Abraham and Isaac, right, from the Bible.
Right.
So I'm talking about the state of Israel was formed post World War I. And remember, in this time frame, post World War I, that was like the culmination of the buildup of the nation state. Before this, the nation state concept was developed. There were just tribes and affiliations. There were large empires that got built up, like the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and that sort of thing. Well, the Ottoman Empire fell during World War I, and so here we are. The British, they ran that area, that region, and so part of it was the Balfour Declaration, where they ceded, okay, we're gonna have a two-state area where we have Palestine and we have the Jewish folks. They're going to form Israel, and they're just going to get whatever parts that the folks, the Arabs that occupied that area. I wouldn't call them Palestinians because there's never been like a state of Palestine. It's just been a region.
Right.
Doesn't deny that they aren't a people at all, and then but they just got scraps left over in the desert, and they made something of it.
Yeah.
And then there were modifications all along.
Yeah.
But after World War II, that's when it became a little more formal, and then the UN stepped in and said, okay, these are the areas of Israel, and it's just been back and forth since then. Between the formation of Israel, the fight right after that, like as Israel was getting formed, there was a war.
Yeah.
With Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, and Egypt. Everybody's attacking. Israel won. And then there was a 6-day war, and that was Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, I think. Now I'm not remembering completely, but I could be wrong, but I think it was just those three all trying to attack. 6-day war is over in 6 days. Israel wins in the 60s.
Yeah, okay.
And that's how we have the rough outlines of where we are today, where Gaza is this area. And again, it's along the Mediterranean. It's just a strip. It's not that big. And then it connects with Egypt. Egypt's kind of staying out of the fight, and they have been. I think it's because we've been paying them not to get in the middle of it.
Not to engage.
Yeah. So at any rate, now we have this new wrinkle, and I think so. Israel's been like rocket attacking Gaza and just leveling Gaza with these rockets and stuff.
Like their military superiority is pretty substantial.
They are.
So what did Hamas think was going to happen?
Well, I think it's provocative on purpose.
Yeah.
I think their goal has always been, whether it was them thinking this idea up or it was just like someone's fomenting their discontent.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter. They have been trying to capitalize on, hey, we're going to hit this guy, and we know this guy's going to level us. We're the ones making the decisions, and we're living in Qatar right now.
Yeah. I gotcha.
The ones making the decisions. That's where the government that's where the Hamas headquarters is.
Okay.
And knowing full well that they're just going to come in, and then the U.S. is going to get involved, and they're going to try to broker some kind of peace deal. In the meantime, they're going to get some press.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So
there was also who was Israel about to sign a peace deal with?
About to?
Just about to, because that's part of the reason Hamas. It was like one of the remaining people that didn't have a peace deal with Israel.
I don't know.
I'll have to look it up. I just was listening about that. They were about to sign a peace deal with. I'll look. I'll have to remember it. Maybe it'll pop into my head after this. But they were about to sign a peace deal, which was like a big deal. They didn't want that to happen. Hamas didn't want that to happen. Another country signing a peace deal with Israel. So, what else? Have you been? Do you follow the Babylon Bee?
Oh yeah.
Have you seen all the funny stuff coming about?
They are.
Did you see the one where Biden was like, Biden has secured that Palestine won't use the $100 million by a pinky swear?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a wrinkle in that too. Biden released $100 million,
billion, I think.
$100 billion.
I think it's $100 billion. I could be wrong, but I thought it was. I thought it was bigger.
But
than
he released a certain amount of money that was for something.
Ukraine and.
But he released some money that we were holding, and then they think that money basically funded that attack.
Okay, so there was a $6 billion deal that he had. So Biden secured a deal for prisoners, a prisoner exchange.
Yeah, that was what it was.
$6 billion to Iran. So
Iran, that was right.
We gave up prisoners, and we gave them $6 billion. That's some deal.
That's pretty good negotiation.
Yeah. So hopefully, then when next time I buy a vehicle, I don't end up giving them things plus a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like you can have my house and all of this money.
If I get this car.
If I get this one car, then I can live in the car.
That's really funny. Yeah, that's what it was. It was that Iran, that they released money to Iran for these prisoners or whatever, and then they were like, "Oh, here you go. Here's some money."
And so Iran, everyone, it's just like this open secret that Iran funds Hamas.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who funds Hezbollah. Doesn't really matter. There's a number of groups in there, and it's hard to keep up with it.
Right.
And if you were to draw it out with the yarn and 3x5 cards on the wall, you would look like Charlie Day's character from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Yeah. Just like, you know, with the cigarette hanging out of your mouth, you just look like.
Yeah.
So slightly connected to that was the funding. So you know who is really excited about this is the military-industrial complex.
Yeah. They love this, right?
Because, you know, hey, we've been having this fight, and it's kind of petering out over in Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because Ukraine, don't believe the hype that the corporate media portrays. Ukraine has been losing badly the entire time.
Yeah.
And it's only a matter of time before it finally gets, you know, the curtain gets pulled back and we see how bad they've been losing.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that Russia has been mired in a slog, but it's not been going Ukraine's way at all.
Yeah.
Well, it's petering out, and we have been restricted on how much money we can give them because we're running out of money.
Yeah.
So so now we have this new one.
Yeah.
So hey, more weapons.
Yeah.
So the money that we've been given to Iran,
Yep.
To keep the peace over there, well, that's been going into some U.S. made rockets and missiles, and then we have the Iron Dome and all the other stuff that we funded through Israel, just fighting each other. And now we have this giant laser apparently that can shoot stuff out of the sky.
I heard about this.
So that's feeding the conspiracy theory fire of, hey, there's a giant laser that you can use as a weapon.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like the crazies have been saying, like, well, that's why the Oprah painted her roof blue. Because the lasers, that's what started to fire over Maui. So, I don't know about all that. But bottom line is the military-industrial complex is making a ton of money off of this whole fight.
I did hear that we do have a pretty sweet laser that shoots stuff out of the sky from a reliable source.
I'm sure.
He may have been on Reaching for the Bars podcast.
There are a lot of directed energy weapons that they sound fanciful.
Yeah.
But they're legit.
Yeah.
They're legit. But they're not without constraints, but, you know, clearly it's been evidence lately that there is something that can stop a rocket.
Yeah, I mean, our stuff in Ukraine was stopping the hypersonic missiles. We were shooting those out of the sky Ukraine was with our defense systems. Mm-hmm. So that's not good for Russia.
No.
Yeah. No. That we can shoot their hypersonic missiles out of the sky with our old stuff.
Yeah.
And they haven't even seen our freaking lasers. We attached them to sharks' heads.
Sharks with lasers.
Yeah, that's super, super good. What else was I going to say? Oh, about the media. I keep forgetting it. So did you hear the big news story that Israel bombed a hospital?
Yes, I did hear that.
So it kept whittling its way back. So this is why I think, like, I don't even know if it's, like, people actively trying to, like, spread disinformation, like in our news media, as much as it is like, well, that happens for sure. But sometimes I think people are just dumb. Mm-hmm. And like, they're like, did you see this? Did you hear about this? Like, let's just post it and do no research. Cause it was Israel bombed a hospital, killed 500 people. Then it was like, maybe it only hit the parking lot. And then they were like, oh, it came from this side.
It was a Hamas rocket.
It was a Hamas rocket that supposedly it was a Hamas rocket that petered out, that like malfunctioned and then hit a parking lot and blew up a bunch of cars, but didn't actually impact the hospital.
Yeah.
And they were showing pictures of like another place that got bombed by Israel. And we're like, look at the hospital. It's totally gone.
Right.
But it wasn't actually that. So I think part of that might be just total
disinformation.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely disinformation, but it's also like I feel like people are just looking for, like CNN is like in the crapper.
Yeah, they've been in the crapper for
like,
long. I think the only thing keeping CNN alive is airports.
Yeah, well, that's fair. Yeah, just playing them on here. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're like, if you just start, you're just like, we just got to put anything out there that sounds good to try to make people click
just
on
get there fastest.
Yeah, just to like, don't research it, just send it out there and we'll see, and we'll deal with because now, 50 years ago, that probably would have been under big scrutiny. Like people would have been like, how could you post? Like now you're just like, yeah, they're just not.
That's irresponsible because it's not, that's not like journalism is like, okay, well I have this lead, but I got to confirm it.
Yeah. You have to like sort out the information.
And then I need to get a response from somebody. Like, did this happen? So give them a chance to respond before you just start posting this stuff out of, some sense of professionalism, but it doesn't seem like that's the case these days.
And now we're so desensitized to it. We're just like, they were wrong aggressively, so it's not even a big deal.
No, they have found that I have found them to be so untrustworthy. I don't even visit those websites anymore.
Yeah, I don't look at them either.
Watch their none of them. Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, none of them. PBS, none of them. And PBS is an arm of the government, so not interested. And if there's anything the founders taught me directly through the writings, I'm not that old. Is you don't trust the government.
Yep.
That's why you set up this nest of where it's difficult for the government to do anything. You totally constrain the government, and you don't let them have any of your liberties.
I heard recently, like one of the viewerships on one of the CNN broadcasts was like, I mean, nothing, like basically nothing in comparison to like things like podcasts, like a daily podcast would get way more views than CNN right now.
Oh yeah, like Tucker gets more views on Twitter.
Way more, right?
Yeah.
It's wild. So they should probably just stop doing that.
They won't because they're still funded. Somebody is funding them to continue on. So
somebody's funding them.
Yeah, maybe we can talk about that on a future podcast. So related to that, speaking of funding, banks, they're also excited about this kind of stuff because they make money and they have another chance to print more money. And if you recall, I think I told you this, and I know I made a post on it on my social media, the Creature from Jekyll Island. Mm-hmm. So I'm about 1/3 of the way through with it. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
But about the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Which is neither federal nor a reserve. It's a central bank.
Yeah.
It's a private company. But the whole idea is, we'll have this. We'll just continue to print money. It's not going to be based on anything.
Yeah.
And if we run out of money, like Janet Yellen, she's the U.S. Treasury Secretary. Mm-hmm. So she's on the cabinet. Like Alexander Hamilton was the first Secretary of the Treasury.
Right.
She's got the same billet as him. And she said, we can afford 2 wars, one in Israel and one in Ukraine. And I don't think it's no secret that we're in a bit of a recession.
Yeah.
That times are tough all over. It doesn't affect everybody everywhere. This town is pretty insulated because it's heavy in the military-industrial realm. But not everybody is as lucky as we are.
For sure.
So times are tough all over. We're about to run out of our oil reserves.
Yeah.
Like in a matter of a week, I think. We're going to be out. And so watch for oil prices to just completely spike.
Yeah.
And we're going to run into this problem where, we're going to have to print more money so that people have more money so we can give out more money or so we can pay for these weapons that are going over to Israel or to Hamas or Iran or however we're going to fund it, or Ukraine. It doesn't really matter. That's some would say, well, that's just that's just a patch, that's just a bug. That's the feature of the central bank.
Right.
The feature of the central bank is your currency is not based on anything. Mm-hmm. You eventually run out of money. You print more money with this crisis that you invented. Mm-hmm. And then now everyone's money is worth less because of the laws of supply and demand.
Right. Everybody's got more, so it's worth less.
So every dollar is worth less. So any dollar that you have in a savings account or, resting in an IRA or 401k, whatever, even invested in stocks or whatever, is worth less when you get it out. And that's a feature of a central bank. That's what they do.
Right.
They just print more money. So that is nested into all of this also.
Yeah. It's a shame that we're set up on wars being the most profitable thing that we can do.
If you look back at the founding of our country, like that's what kind of that's what precipitated the American Revolution. Mm-hmm. You had England, who was in dire straits financially,
right?
From the wars that they've had for years and years and years with France. It was a tough time. George III, new king, kind of young. Hey, we're just going to increase taxes on our colonies, Ireland, India, and the Americas, and we weren't represented. And the Stamp Act was created. That financial mess that they were in precipitated increasing taxes, and that was a 3% tax, I think. Mm-hmm. And we fought over that 3% tax.
Right.
We're taxed about 30% now.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh yeah, well we need good roads.
yeah.
The government doesn't need to provide roads. We could do roads with private companies.
For sure, yeah, 100%.
So at any rate, and then they were coming to take our guns. They were taxing us to death at 3%. And so there we go. That's what started the American Revolution.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah, they should. I don't know. I don't know what to say about that.
Last thing I'll hit up is Second Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been, out of casual observation about what's going on in Israel, and we kind of touched on it before. They restricted guns, and then there was some relief of some of that restriction on the amount of ammo they could have in their house for self-defense. But there's no better example of why the citizenry should be armed, and they should know how to use their arms.
For sure.
And I'm not talking about a National Guard that will come and save the day, because that's a function of the state, the state, capital S state. So in our case, Alabama. So. And it shouldn't be the responsibility of the military, because that takes time. It took 6 hours for a coordinated response by the IDF.
Right.
So we should be armed, and we should train ourselves, and we should get pulled together and train with each other on how to use those arms. Because let's say the hundreds of millions of people then pouring over our southern border, all of a sudden there's a coordinated attack from within, and what a mess that would make.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of folks getting exercised, and rightly so, about what we should do in this nation. We should start thinking about those kinds of things. So, if you have a gun, go out and practice with it. Start using it. If you can conceal carry, then conceal carry. You probably should conceal carry, because it's your responsibility, my responsibility, to protect my family. Mm-hmm. And if you're a fighting age, you should be in some kind of shape.
Yeah.
And not just sit in your mom's basement eating potato chips and drinking Mountain Dew.
That's fair.
So just encourage you, the listeners, to do that, get engaged, learn some Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or do some
kind of training.
Yeah. And get excited about this, because you never know when it could happen to us.
Yeah. It's better to be prepared, not need it, than need it, not be prepared.
Right. And you might run into some friends that can, you can enjoy that kind of camaraderie that comes from a martial sport.
That's right. I agree.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Well, any closing thoughts? We've been about 30 minutes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very interesting topic. We'll see how it unfolds as it goes on. Maybe we'll touch on it again as it unfolds. Hopefully my optimistic heart, hopefully some kind of peace deal is brokered, and I just, loss of life is always a bad thing. So
that's you hit the note that I want to hit at the end. So thanks for that. This is the thing that I do want. I just want peace to reign throughout.
Yeah.
And that should be what we're all striving for. We shouldn't get all worked up about picking a side, but we should be working towards a peaceful resolution.
That's right.
Because when it comes down to it, nations or groups, they end up sending people of fighting age to go fight each other. Mm-hmm. And those individuals may or may not have a bone to pick, but they are of that fighting age, and they get whipped up through propaganda to do these kinds of things.
Right.
and they're the ones that lose their lives, and the ones that made the decisions are sitting somewhere else making money, and that's not a good thing. So we want a peaceful resolution without a doubt.
For sure.
So, well, thank you all for listening. We have there was a small delay. I'll close out real quick. There was a small delay on me moving on the hat. I want to get a prototype for the hat, but I was out of the net for the past almost 2 weeks. I'm back up on the step, and I'm glad to be back engaged with people outside of my house. And so so I'm going to get moving on the hat again, and you'll hear more about it in the near future. So
good deal.
All right. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.